It's been over a decade since AWS and Intel began our journey together. We've combined the depth and breadth of AWS cloud services with the performance and dependability of Intel custom processors, so our customers can build tools for the fast-growing future. Together, we're making technology more accessible by optimizing our global infrastructure. And we're reinventing the capabilities of data and analytics with powerful AI through an engineering collaboration that pushes the boundaries of innovation. But it wasn't these ideas that changed the world. It's how AWS customers use these innovations to bring their own ideas to life. It's how Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center can analyze data from more than 15,000 biological samples. A process that previously took 7 years of compute time now takes just 7 days. It's how the Australasian Wildlife Genomics Group at the University of Sydney can support conservation efforts of native wildlife by reducing genomic analysis time from 10 days to 5 hours. It's how Europe's Delivery Hero shortened their monthly billing runs, a 20-hour task, down to 90 minutes. And we're excited because this is only the beginning. Today, AWS and Intel are working together to put our most advanced technologies into your hands, so you can think bigger, build better, and innovate faster. Whether it's tomorrow or 10 years down the road, we can't wait to see what you do next.
Please welcome on stage Yvonne Bettkober, General Manager for AWS in Switzerland and Austria.
Wow, einen wunderschönen guten Morgen, Berlin. Also entweder der Morgenkaffee wirkt noch nicht oder die Nacht war wirklich zu kurz. Ich versuche es nochmal. Guten Morgen, Berlin. Much better. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce the day 2 of the AWS Summit in Berlin. I'm here to guide you through the day and prepare you for the exciting agenda that we have ready for you. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes with you really doing 2 things. One is saying thank you, and the other one is to touch slightly on a topic that is very close to my heart, which is sustainability. But let me start with the first thank you. We've just announced our Q1 result. We delivered in Q1 18.44 billion in revenue, growing 37% year over year. AWS is now a 74 billion run rate business. And there's only one reason why this has happened. It's because of the trust that you put in us. And I want to say thank you for this trust. I've had many conversations yesterday with several of you, and one thing really that comes across is that transformation is hard. Change is hard. You are all fighting gravity in your different organizations, igniting change and enabling technology-driven innovation. And to do that, you need to have a partner that you trust, that is going to be with you all along the journey. And we work very hard to deserve this trust. We innovate on your behalf, and we invest for you. On the innovation side, I was looking at data with the team a couple of weeks ago. And you know already that 90% of what we build is based on customer feedback. But what I realized that I didn't know before is that in 2011, AWS released 80 significant features and services. In 2021, 10 years later, it wasn't 80 anymore. It was 3,084. This is the pace at which we innovate to allow you to build literally any workload in the cloud. The second part, beyond innovating, is how we invest. We have built one of the most, if not the most extensive infrastructure footprint globally. We now have 26 geographic regions and 84 availability zones. And we just announced 8 more regions to come. And I'm very proud to see that a large part of that investment is landing in the places and the countries that I'm responsible for, Switzerland and Austria. In February, we announced a local zone in Austria, and in H2 this year, we'll be launching an infrastructure region in Switzerland. Thank you. The second thing I wanted to do this morning, beyond saying thank you, is to talk about sustainability. We, as Amazon and AWS, we are committed to building a sustainable future to our children. We ignited the climate pledge in 2019. We've been joined in the meantime by more than 300 companies. We have ambitious goals. We want to be net zero carbon by 2040. That is 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. And we will be 100% on renewable energy by 2025. There's many things we do to achieve that. On AWS side, for example, we build highly efficient data center. A recent study has shown across European countries that AWS data center are 5 times more energy efficient than the average European data center, and we perform the same task with an 80% lower footprint. Now you probably wonder, yeah, but how about renewable energy? Amazon is currently the biggest corporate buyer of renewable energy in the European Union. We have contracted 4 times more megawatt of renewable energy than any other corporate in the last years. And we just signed an agreement for an offshore wind park, Borkum Riffgrund 3, that will start providing energy by 2025 here in Germany. This is the biggest contract of that kind in Europe at the moment. And you'll hear later from Scania how our customers actually are innovating around sustainability, leveraging AWS. Now, when it comes to you, what are we doing beyond helping you move to a more efficient data center with AWS? Well, many customers build solutions for sustainability using AWS Cloud. But we have 2 important announcements that we've made this year that I want to come back to. One is we introduced the AWS Carbon Footprint Tool. What that tool does really is to help you monitor, analyze, and reduce your carbon footprint over time. It really will allow you to set goals internally for your organization and be able to measure the emissions that are related to your AWS infrastructure. The second announcement that we made is that we have introduced a sustainability pillar to our well-architected framework. The idea behind that really is to make sure that you can measure the energy consumption and the environmental impact of your cloud workloads. And the tool will provide you with improvement plan in order to reduce your usage and increase the efficiency of your infrastructure. If you want to hear more, I invite you to join the AWS world, and you will hear from the team how you can leverage this new tool to improve your own sustainability posture. Now, I told you that I wanted to say thank you and talk about sustainability. There is a second thank you I wanted to say, and this is to our partners, our global sponsors, Intel, VMware, Datadog, Veeam, New Relic, Palo Alto. An event of this magnitude is not possible without partners, and we're really thankful for having so many partners on our side that help us lift this event and actually give us, for the first time in many years, the great experience to coming together as one crowd and really inspire each other and exchange with each other. So thank you to our partners. I have a last thank you that I want to say, and that is to the AWS team. I joined this company almost 3 years ago now, and it's always amazing to see how the crowd, the Amazonian crowd, comes together when we have something that needs to be delivered to customer. And this event was not an exception to that. So I want to say a big thank you to the core team that haven't slept a lot in the past few weeks and days, and also to the many, many volunteers that literally swarmed in from around the globe. This is what I wanted to share with you this morning. I'm very sure that you are going to have a fantastic day with us. And the last duty that I have for you is to introduce you to our keynote speaker. So join me in welcoming Kevin Miller, Vice President for Amazon S3.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Yvonne. It is so great to hear about the momentum of the cloud here in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. And just to briefly introduce myself, I'm Kevin Miller, the global leader for Amazon S3. S3 launched back in 2006 and was AWS's first generally available service. And I've been a part of AWS for about the last 14 years. And while I speak to thousands of customers in that time, it's always fun and exciting to have the opportunity to speak with more. So thank you for inviting me. And you may not know, but last year, actually, S3 began an engineering team here in Berlin. And so, for all of these reasons, I'm just really excited to speak with you today. So, when I talk to customers, I like to start off by understanding, why they choose to use AWS and what they're trying to accomplish in their business. And the answers vary a lot, and they speak about the wide range of workloads that they run. And the workloads are everything from reducing operational burden and just getting out of the business of running infrastructure to really being able to rapidly develop brand new applications and then launching them at scale. And every day we see customers experience the agility, cost, and elasticity benefits of AWS. But there's another benefit that customers often mention to me, and that is AWS's pace of innovation. We are constantly listening to you and then inventing on your behalf. In 2021 alone, we launched 3,084 significant new services and features. And so, for example, just about a month ago, we launched a new simple way to configure an HTTPS endpoint in front of serverless Lambda functions so that you don't have to do any other services, use any other services to make that work. And so that gives you the ability now to implement, for example, a webhook handler or like a simple form validator that runs within that Lambda function. And so working with customers over the past 14 years, I'd say one thing has been a constant, and that is the continuous evolution of our customers' technology needs. And I've seen in that time AWS and a lot of my colleagues really just constantly seek to meet those needs with simple, cost-effective, secure, and robust services. I would say that picking the right technology platform is incredibly important because the decisions you make today will have long-lasting impact and consequence for where you go. And this kind of reminds me of a story that I recently heard about the space shuttle. And when you look at the space shuttle, a big part of getting into orbit were these two solid rocket boosters on either side of the shuttle. These boosters were actually the most powerful solid rocket motors ever flown, and they provided 85% of the thrust for the first 2 minutes of flight. In fact, they provided 14.7 million newtons of thrust, which I was looking up, and it's actually like 20 times more thrust than the two engines on a Boeing 787 combined. Now, to do all of this, the rockets needed to be as large and wide as possible. But when designing these rockets and trying to increase the width, the engineers ran into a surprising limitation. And you see, to get to the launch site, the booster rockets have to travel by train, and they go through tunnels. And in the United States, these tunnels restrict rail cargo to be less than 4 meters wide. And so, why 4 meters? Well, that restriction is actually based on the width of the railroad tracks, which is 144 centimeters. So the 144 centimeter standard actually in turn goes back to the earliest railroads built in England in 1798. And then why 144 centimeters? Well, they were built to be the same width as the wagons that used to travel those trails. And the wagons were designed to roll in the tracks of the old roads that were actually first made for the Roman war chariots. Okay, so we're now back to about 100 AD in the Roman Empire, and don't worry, the history lesson actually ends soon. But the chariots in 100 AD were standardized to accommodate the width of 2 war horses. And so how wide were 2 war horses, you might ask? Well, 144 centimeters. And so, the point of all of this is that a significant design feature of the space shuttle was actually influenced by the width of 2 horses 2,000 years ago. Okay, so getting back to the cloud now, I think this example just sort of underscores how technology decisions that you make today will really set the context for what happens for you in the future. And that's why I think it's so important that you think long-term and consider both the short-term and long-term consequences and consider the pace of innovation and make sure that you have a provider that listens to customers and innovates on your behalf. So you want a provider who's there for you, whatever the future brings. And one of the things that I've seen firsthand, time and time again, is Amazon's different approach to innovation. It's really actually a core part of our DNA, of our culture. And so we actually have a leadership principle that we call invent and simplify. And so we hire builders and engineers who are just passionate about constantly looking for ways to simplify and turn new ideas into reality. I think a great example of how this actually has played out in practice is the AWS Nitro System, which is the underlying platform for all of our EC2 instances. When we launched EC2 in 2006, and after that, we spent years optimizing the virtualization and really pushing the systems to the limit. But customers were continuously looking for even greater performance and even stronger security. And we could see that we were starting to reach the limits of what we could achieve with the existing system. And in a sense, that system was sort of our 144 centimeter constraint. And so we had said, we need a new approach. And our builders got together and invented the Nitro system. With Nitro, we offload virtually all of the functions to dedicated hardware and embedded software so that we can make nearly all of the primary machine resources available to you in your applications. And as we designed the system from the ground up, we were also able to build in modern, strong security and actually reduce the performance jitter. And we implemented Nitro in a way that allows us to combine it in different ways and ultimately to build a variety of instance types. Today we have more than 500 instance types, which is actually more than any other cloud provider. And you might ask, why do we need so many instance types? Well, each instance type provides you a unique combination of the processor, storage, memory, networking, so that you have a really optimized instance for your particular workload. And using Nitro, we've been able to launch a number of different type of instances, including the Mac instances, M1 Mac, bare metal, as well as ultra clusters on HPC. Today, we have actually the broadest range of processors and accelerators available. We have Intel processors that power most of the EC2 instance types. With Intel, we use their latest Xeon scalable processors. And we're also working directly with AMD to increase choice and value in cloud computing. Today, you can actually use the latest 3rd generation AMD EPYC or Milan processors in the cloud. And we've also been developing our own custom silicon. AWS Trainium, for example, provides the best price performance for training deep learning models in the cloud, while AWS Inferentia was designed to deliver high performance and low cost for machine learning inference. And then that'll bring us to Graviton, which is what we've designed for general purpose workloads. A number of years ago, we identified an opportunity to develop our own ARM processors to improve price performance, as well as optimize energy consumption. Yvonne was talking about sustainability. This is a key part of it. And really undaunted by the complexity and challenge of innovating at this very low silicon level, we started developing the Graviton processor line. So the Graviton 2 processors you can use provide up to a 40% better price performance for a wide variety of workloads over the comparable x86 processors. And already we've seen tens of thousands of customers move their workloads over to Graviton-based EC2 instances. We're actually now on the 3rd generation of processors with Graviton 3, and these are even more performant for both general purpose as well as machine learning workloads. And they allow our customers to meaningfully reduce their carbon footprint by reducing the energy consumption for an equivalent level of performance. But you actually don't have to just use EC2 to benefit from Graviton. We've released Graviton-powered versions of many of our most popular managed services. For example, EMR for big data analytics, or the Amazon OpenSearch service, or the Amazon Relational Database service. And then for those of you who are building serverless applications, we've also released Graviton support for Fargate and Lambda. And that extends all of the price, performance, and other benefits of Graviton to those serverless workloads. And so in fact, Lambda functions using Graviton have seen up to a 34% better price performance. And so Nitro and Graviton are really just two of the many, many ways that we're constantly improving and iterating to make AWS the best cloud for your applications. But AWS is also not just for built-in cloud or serverless workloads. It's really for every application, including traditional workloads like SAP, Oracle, and Windows, as well as increasingly for latency-sensitive workloads that need to be physically close to a factory or an office or an end customer. So today, we're pushing well beyond our regional data centers to operate services in AWS Local Zones, in 5G network centers with AWS Wavelength, or in your own facilities using AWS Outposts, our IoT technology, and the AWS Snow family. And with all of these offerings, our focus is really on providing you integrated capabilities to simplify building applications that run across the whole spectrum of locations. An essential element in connecting all of these locations is the AWS Global Network. It's an area we've been innovating for many, many years. Today, our backbone network connects 26 regions on 6 different continents, 84 availability zones, and over 310 points of presence. We build all of this network using bundles of multiple 100 gigabit per second fiber optic network links, including having transoceanic links across 3 oceans. It's a high-capacity network, it's highly available, and it's really optimized for low latency. And our engineers, AWS engineers, monitor it 24/7 to make sure that we have the capacity and the latency to keep your data moving. The AWS Local Zones are a good example of how we're innovating on top of this network so that you can build applications that are just milliseconds away from your end users. Using local zones, you have compute and storage, databases, and other AWS services located in large population and industrial centers. Today, we have 17 local zones across the United States, and we've announced our plans to launch AWS Local Zones in 32 cities around the globe. Unfortunately, AWS hasn't actually announced one at my house yet, but I'm hoping at reInvent that'll come, so we'll see. Supercell is one example of a customer who's using AWS Local Zones. They are a game developer that's built a number of very well-used games like Clash of Clans, and they have hundreds of millions of active users, over 600 databases, 500 servers, and they process terabytes of data every day on AWS. They use local zones in the US and planning or considering additional local zones around the globe to bring those real-time, latency-sensitive portions of their game close to their end users. Another way that we're extending the AWS footprint outside of our regions, as I mentioned, is AWS Outposts. These are fully managed racks that deliver AWS infrastructure and services to our on-premises or edge locations. And while it might seem like it's a hardware offering, it's really a fully managed cloud offering, managed by the standard AWS API, CLI, and management console, and making sure that you can use the existing tools that you use in regions to also manage your outposts. Now, for example, AWS Outposts is extending the migration, or enabling rather, the migration of NASDAQ's North American markets to the AWS cloud. This year, in fact, they plan to start moving their US options market to AWS using AWS Outposts in their on-premises infrastructure. And they're planning to configure their network to deliver low latency edge compute capabilities using Outposts directly in that facility. So there's just an incredible spectrum of choice for customers now. And I haven't even really touched on things like AWS Wavelength that embeds AWS compute and storage directly at the edge of the 5G networks, including with carriers like Verizon, KDDI, and in Germany here, Vodafone. Or we have some of our IoT services that connect billions of devices that are part of our everyday lives. And I would just really encourage throughout the day, there's a lot of sessions that really deep dive on these areas and just help you, dig in and choose what might make most sense for your application. It is always amazing to me to see customers that build on top of all of this innovation in the cloud and are themselves transforming their businesses with the new capabilities that delight their customers. It's a trend, frankly, we're seeing across almost every industry, every size customer, and every geography. I'd actually like to invite a customer to the stage to talk a little bit about how this is working for them. And so please join me in welcoming Peter Vincent, the head of Connected Systems Research and Development at Scania.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, Berlin. The transport industry is changing rapidly. Autonomous, electrified, and connected vehicles are driving the shift to a sustainable transport system. I will talk about how we have made our cloud journey with AWS as our partner. My name is Peter Vincent. I work as head of Connected System, leading a brilliant team of 300 engineers at Scania Research and Development. So Scania is a premium provider of commercial vehicles. We are owned by Traton, part of the Volkswagen Group. In the group, there are 4 brands: Scania in Sweden, MAN Truck and Bus in Germany, Volkswagen Camino Omnibus in Brazil, and Navistar in the US. With more than 130 years of operation, Scania has a long and successful tradition of developing and selling heavy commercial vehicles. Connectivity and our digitalization journey is something we have invested in for a long time. In our domain, we have been pioneers. Since 2011, we have provided connectivity as a standard feature for all our products. That means that we today have about 600,000 connected vehicles around the globe in more than 100+ countries. So, taking a step back, looking at the industry challenge in the transport industry, there are several challenges, but 2 major transformative ones. One is about sustainability. Changing from fossil fuel to renewable fuels and electrification, that changes how trucks are designed, sold, and operated. The other part, digitalization, on how transport are purchased, executed, and optimized. In the digitalization in the transport system today is siloed and fragmentized. We have a lot of digital startups that are entering the market, and both existing players and the newcomers, we are balancing the mix between new technology and operational expertise in order to unlock customer value. For us, these challenges change how we see the core of our product technology domain, where we traditionally have been very strong and been technology leaders. Scania has won the Green Truck Award for 6 years in a row. We have the best powertrain there is in the world. We also have a premium cab that our drivers love. Some of them love it so much that they put a tattoo on their body. These technologies that has been successful for so many years, it's not sure they will keep us as a premium provider of heavy commercial trucks. So looking at what have we done then with our connected systems, what are we using it for? So mainly there are 3 things. First, connected repair and maintenance. That is, ensuring that we have the right flexible service interval or proactive repair of components based on that individual vehicle's operation. With this, we build up a portfolio for our workshops, 1,600 throughout the globe, that has a total revenue of 3 billion euro. So second one is fleet management systems, providing tools for optimizing the use of a vehicle or a fleet of vehicles by our customers. And third, digitalization of our own processes, such as the configuration of a new vehicle sales, where we can go in and based on the usage of a vehicle of the owner, provide the configuration for a new vehicle and save up to 5% of total cost of ownership. And in the transport industry, this is super big savings. A typical of our owners, they earn their money, their revenue, or the profit of the year between Christmas and New Year. The margins are low, so lowering the cost is super important for us. So, in order to do all of this, we need to rely on strong partners. And we need to rely on partners that have the best technology. So we started our cloud journey already back in 2016. We made a very bold statement. We should go cloud first. And then we announced a big partnership with AWS. In the background, our client server on-prem monolith system was not set up to scale. We were at the bottleneck where we could not add new vehicles to the system. We were calculating the number of months until we had to not add new vehicles. So we started over from scratch. A new way of working, a new infrastructure set up, and we had to move fast in order to deliver on our customers' promises. So we decided very early in the process to base our solution on AWS native toolbox and use the managed services available from AWS. And we did this primarily to get speed and development phase, but also to leverage all the new features that AWS is providing with us. And for us, the cloud journey has been a way to attract and retain key personnel. I think it's true for everybody, especially in this room, that working with good technology, it's actually way more fun than to work with technology that does not meet the standard. Through the transition, we have been able to impact 4 main pillars: performance, availability, release cadence, and cost. So when the transition started, the fastest we can go with our machinery was 1 position every 60 seconds for every vehicle. We just recently launched a test trial in Poland, where we are integrating the toll system in Poland with our trucks, and we now are running it with 5 seconds cadence. On availability, we have improved a lot. We have gone from the 98% to 99.5%. We have automated all of our releases, and we have made sure that all our tests are geared for availability. And through the decoupling of our services into a micro-architecture, we have been able to increase our release cadence. We have gone from coordinated releases into releases when they are ready. And this has made it possible for us to release new functionality to our customers way more faster. And at the same time, we've been able to keep control of our cost. We think we have increased the total need of power with at least 10 times. It's hard to say, but we also see that our actual costs are going down 20%. So where do we go from here? This is the start of the journey. Well, now we are looking at doing multi-region deploy. Local regulations and local business adaptations require that. We're looking at countries like China and Brazil. And we also need to deploy part of our solution for our autonomous systems. We are running autonomous trucks in trials, and that requires a mission-critical setup. It's high requirements on availability, on robustness, but also on security. With AWS, we don't have to reinvent ourselves when we take these steps. We already have the tools necessary for us. And then machine learning products. We've been able to deploy new data insights based on AWS SageMaker that make it possible for us to reduce the transport flow. That's good for cost, but also for the environment. If we can reduce the need of transport, as we have been able to do with up to 10%, that is fantastic, not just for our customers, but that's also for the planet. So the transport industry is changing rapidly. Autonomous, electrified, and connected vehicles is driving the shift to sustainable transport system. With excellent partners, we can go faster. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peter. It is fantastic to hear how Scania is using AWS to innovate for customers in the transportation industry. You know, the cloud really has changed the way many of you do business, with the cost of compute and storage and databases coming way down. And as a result, I see customers and businesses storing more data than ever before. When I actually took this job in storage about 4 years ago, I was introduced to some new terminology, things like petabyte and exabyte. And today it's just become common to see customers that are storing petabytes of data. And it's no surprise to me, given that the IDC forecasts that there will be over 97 zettabytes of data created and replicated just in 2022 alone. And I'm told that possibly a zettabyte of that is actually your cat pictures. So, just something we love to store. But to put that in perspective, if you were to save all of that data on 10 terabyte hard drives, and if you stack them as high, you would actually stack them as high as the Berliner Fernsehturm Tower 1.6 million times over. Or you could stack the hard drives to the moon and back, and one more time to the moon. So a lot of data. And every day there is tremendous data that flows through an organization. And from what I've seen, a lot of the data is actually just thrown away. It's never captured. And customers and businesses are learning that there is a lot of value in storing and processing and learning from that data, from capturing it. But I also see for a lot of customers that they are at an early stage and they just need to organize themselves and actually rethink how their company works to capture that data. They also need to think about the culture and think about the skill sets that they need for them to be successful doing so. Oftentimes, customers talk about and start building a modern data strategy. And the essential elements of any modern data strategy are around scalability, security, and flexibility. Customers don't want to be constrained by capacity, and they want to be able to move fast to build new applications, experiment, and know all the while that the data is safe and secure. And so we expand beyond those three essential elements to other critical inputs. Customers are looking for good data governance, ensuring that they know what data they have and who has access to it. And the data has to be available when they need it. And then, of course, none of us are seeing our budgets grow a lot faster than the amount of data is growing. The data is growing much faster than the cost or the budgets to process it. So every year, customers are looking for ways to reduce their costs. Today we have more than 1.5 million customers, really across every geography, every industry, and every customer size that are on a transformation journey to make better use of the data. This is actually just a small sample of the set of customers that are on this journey. And many of these customers are right here in Germany, like Bundesliga, Siemens, Zalando, and more. And we often work with customers on these three pillars of their data strategy: to modernize, unify, and then innovate. With modernize, customers want to take advantage of all of the AWS innovation that I talked about earlier to reduce costs and eliminate the traditional barriers to scale. And then in unifying, they want to break down those data silos that they have and really enable cross-organization innovation. And then finally, they want to unleash the power of innovation that we talked about for their own business, using things like analytics, machine learning, and building new applications that can tap into all of these data sources. So let's first talk about modernizing, where AWS has unmatched experience, and we have the reliability, security, and performance that can all form the solid foundation for your applications. Every customer essentially has databases, and AWS customers can choose from a huge portfolio of fully managed database offerings. So if you run a MySQL or Postgres database and you just want to have us handle the backups, the patching, the failover, scaling, consider using the Amazon Relational Database Service. Or if you're building a new application and you need to have it scale to mass numbers with nearly unlimited throughput and consistent single-digit millisecond latency, consider Amazon DynamoDB. Or if you have a need for an in-memory database or a document database, a graph database, time series, we have you covered. And I encourage you today to check out the sessions that really deep dive and give you more information about all of these offerings. Also, every workload needs storage. And for modernizing, customers can use our broad portfolio of fully managed object, block, and file services. For customers that have, if you have on-premises Windows or NetApp storage, you can quickly get those migrated to AWS using Amazon FSx for Windows or FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Or for those of you who are looking for virtually unlimited storage and request scaling at a very low cost, Amazon S3 has you covered. Within each of our AWS regions around the world, S3 stores data in a minimum of 3 independent data centers. Each of those data centers is actually separated by kilometers to protect you against the disruption of any single data center event. And then for some, getting the data into the cloud can actually be a real challenge. And so we have a range of hybrid, edge, and data migration services to really meet you where you are and allow you to quickly move data. The second pillar I mentioned is around data unification, to ensure that your data can be quickly tapped into organization-wide. Your data can reside in a lot of different places. It can be in a data lake, a database, some on-premises stores, and many more. And what we see as an essential element of unifying this data is a catalog, so you can quickly locate and begin querying across that data. And then also accompanying that, you want the right controls to govern who can access the data and where you have sensitive data like PII. One of the patterns that we're seeing most commonly is the growth of even petabyte or even exabyte scale data lakes. Customers use data lakes to capture any amount of data from a variety of sources like IoT sensors, logs, mobile devices, a lot more. And once data is cataloged, you can then put it to work with analytics, building new cloud applications, building visualizations, business intelligence, or machine learning. So, where's all this data going? What's actually providing the data lake, you might ask? Well, I tend to think there's no better place to start than S3, although I might be slightly biased. Today, S3 holds more than 200 trillion objects, and we peak at request rates of above 100 million requests per second. So S3 is great for data lakes, and though it's 16 years old, we are constantly innovating to bring new features and capabilities to continue making it the best place for your data lake. So for example, a few years ago, we launched a new S3 storage class that we call S3 Intelligent Tiering. And we did this because customers were telling us that they had a lot of data that had changing or unpredictable access patterns. Sometimes data was used a lot, very frequently, and other times it might sit and not be used for weeks or even months. And they wanted to cost optimize this using some of our lower cost storage classes, but it was just too complex to manage this given data was heating up and cooling down. And so we challenged our engineering teams to innovate, and they absolutely did. With intelligent tiering, we designed it to automatically optimize storage costs by moving data to the most cost-effective storage tier as your access patterns change. And a remarkable statistic is that since the launch of S3 Intelligent Tiering in 2019, customers have saved more than $250 million over using S3 Standard by using intelligent tiering. And that's been automatic cost savings. And it just could not be easier to get your data running in a data lake, and you can do it in just a few days. Once your data is in S3, you can use tools like lake formation to provide data governance, and use AWS Glue to catalog and identify your structured data. And then you can get working right away using tools like Amazon Athena to query your data using standard SQL. I think a great example that showcases kind of the value of a unified data strategy is Joyn, which is a German television network. Joyn previously had to be selective about the content that they'd retrieve from their archives, but they were actually able to increase their storage volume by 3 times for the same TCO using S3 Intelligent Tiering. So they no longer have to think about deleting certain data or moving certain data into the archive. The content sits ready to be used. And really best of all is what this enables for their customers, because they now are able to offer their customers the entire catalog of exclusive titles they have available more efficiently than they were able to previously using their on-premises infrastructure. It's really an awesome example of what you can do with the cloud. And this, I think, is where it gets really exciting, because you can innovate then on top of all this to build new applications, transform your current ones, and really just improve the way your business works. And we support you. We have the broadest and most complete set of analytics, AI, and machine learning services for builders of all levels of expertise. The AWS Analytics Services that I show here, provide just a lot of tools that you can use to process, query, and visualize your data. I was speaking a moment ago about Athena, which is just a very simple serverless approach to querying structured data. You can use EMR to run MapReduce type queries over massive data sets, or you can use Amazon Redshift to process data warehouse type queries over mass amounts of data. For years, also, we've heard from customers that they really appreciate serverless options. So you don't have to worry about scaling up or down. You just let us handle that. And it's an area that we've been innovating a lot over the past many years. And we now have the most serverless options available for data analytics in the cloud. It's really, frankly, very exciting at just how simple these services make it to focus on what you really care about and let us handle all the rest. So one case is analysts and line of business users that require tools that let them look for trends, to find patterns, and just to get a more complete picture of their customers and the processes and their business. For that, we have Amazon Quicksite, which is a tool that provides cloud-native dashboards that are accessible directly through a web browser, and it just has a really deep set of capability that we're constantly improving. It's also low cost, and we have very simple pay-as-you-go pricing. One recent launch that I think is particularly innovative is Quicksite Queue, which allows users to query in a very plain language. So for example, you could ask a simple question like, show me the yearly sales for Americas versus Europe. With Queue, you no longer have to fiddle around with dashboards or talk to a BI team and wait to get an answer back. You can just go make that query and get the answer. So one customer who's using analytics and machine learning to reinvent motorsports is F1. So let's take a quick look.
AWS and F1 partnered in 2018, and since then have helped to cement Formula One as the most technologically driven sport on the planet.
And it's lights out and away we go!
We were able to consider the huge amount of data that was available at Formula One that up until this point, it hadn't really tapped into. How do we present the data to engage the fan more? It was a fairly simple premise on which we built the strategy. F1 Insights are data widgets. It helps the fan to be able to understand at a more detailed level what's going on in a Formula One race. They're a game changer because until this point, there was no way of really understanding all of the details of the Formula One race. We asked the fans what they wanted. They wanted up-close, wheel-to-wheel racing. And that wasn't possible with the current generation of cars. So we had to go away and we had to redesign that car. We needed a technology partner like AWS who helped us to put that whole project together and hence the results of the new car. So for Formula One to deliver on its future vision, it must engage the right partner. And when we talk about technology and when we talk about cloud services and analytics and machine learning, AWS is that partner.
I think that's just a great example of how machine learning capabilities are really driving innovation in clearly impactful ways. So I'm seeing customers use machine learning to tackle some of their biggest challenges in their business. They're improving customer experiences, driving top-line revenue growth, reducing fraud, and reducing other costs, and just doing a lot more. AWS really provides a broad and complete set of AI and ML services. And again, we focused on providing capabilities that meet any level of expertise in machine learning. So for ML experts, we have optimized versions of the most popular deep learning frameworks, things like PyTorch and MXNet and TensorFlow, that provide the best performance in the cloud. And as I mentioned earlier, all of this runs atop our broad and deep portfolio of compute and networking and storage infrastructure services with a broad choice of processors and accelerators to meet the performance and budget needs. For data scientists and more advanced developers, we have Amazon SageMaker, which makes it super easy to build, train, and deploy machine learning models at scale. And SageMaker, I think, does a great job at removing the complexity of managing all of the experimentation and training and inference infrastructure that you otherwise have to run, and allows you to build custom models for everything from doing predictive maintenance to computer vision and so many more. And then for every developer who wants to have some ML capabilities and intelligence right in their applications, like image and video recognition, text-to-speech, natural language understanding, or having highly accurate enterprise search, we also just have a range of AI services that make these powerful capabilities as simple as an API call. And our goal is to make machine learning more accessible for businesses of every type across all of the industries. I mean, it's pretty humbling to me to see how customers build on top of these services to innovate and transform what they're doing. But as we were building these services, one thing we were hearing a lot from customers is that they needed help training their builders to really take advantage of it. And so again, we started innovating here. We went to the drawing board. And we've introduced now a range of educational programs and courses and other resources, ways to learn, to enable anyone that wants to learn how to make effective use of ML. Our goal is actually to train 29 million people by 2025, and we're on track for that. And I suspect many of you know that gaming is a very powerful way to learn, because we're all kind of naturally competitive. And given a race, we love to challenge ourselves and challenge a friend. And that was really the genesis for the AWS Deep Racer League, which is our 1/18th scale autonomous race car that's powered by deep learning that you develop. And so we've actually formed an international racing league, and we have deep racer competitions where the best performers compete to see who's going to get the #1 spot. So let's just have a quick update on this year's 2022 Deep Racer League.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Marine, and I'm excited to bring you the next evolution in racing, the world's first global autonomous racing league, AWS Deep Racer. Since launch, over 140,000 developers from more than 150 countries have participated. And this year, the Deep Racer League is more accessible than ever before. With the all-new Student League presented by Intel, high school and college students worldwide can compete for scholarships, prizes, and glory. Students can get rolling with just a few clicks, no credit card required. All new AWS Deep Racer arcades will let you skip the coding, grab the wheel, and race head-to-head against AI. Compete from anywhere in the world in monthly virtual circuit races. And the Summit Circuit is back in person on physical tracks across the globe with more chances to qualify for one of 50 coveted spots in the championships at reInvent. Discover how you can accelerate your machine learning journey at deepracerleague.com.
It's great to see all the new possibilities in this year's Deep Racer League. And I think I also need to get myself one of those jumpsuits. That's pretty cool. Customers that adopt a modern data strategy are driving real improvements in the metrics that matter to them most. And I think you can as well. But I'd like to now hear from a customer who is really putting their data to work. So please welcome Andreas Schranshofer, the Chief Technology Officer at Scalable Capital.
Thanks for the introduction. It really is a pleasure to be on stage today. My name is Andreas Schranshofer, and I'm the CTO at Scalable Capital. And at Scalable Capital, our mission is to empower everyone to become an investor. And we do that, among other things, by our brokerage platform, the Scalable Broker. Trade unlimited in shares, crypto, ETF, and derivatives without commission. In this talk, I'm going to talk to you about the challenges we faced when building our broker and how we solved them using AWS cloud technology. We offer 6,000 stock, 1,500 ETPs, 2,000 mutual funds, and more than 300,000 derivatives. We enable after-hours trading, market limit and stop orders, and provide real-time market and performance update at a very competitive price point. In fact, we introduced flat rate trading into the German market, and by our European expansion into the European market for $2.99. For $2.99 a month, you can trade as much as you want. Let me give you a few numbers about Scalable Capital. We've been started in 2015 as a fintech startup in Munich. We have 380 employees in the meantime, collected 260 million euros in funding, and are valued at more than 1 billion euro. We manage more than 6 billion euros in more than 500,000 portfolios. We are a fintech, and that means we use technology to democratize access to the financial market. That is, we remove barriers to access the financial markets. I brought an example here today, our limit orders. When executing a limit order, setting a good limit is key to a good outcome. But how do you set a good limit? This is TAF mathematics, correlations, probability theory, and other aspects like time of day, for example. We built the technology to do all that for our clients in our cloud platform, and we deliver the results right in the palm of their hands on their mobile phones. This trade, for example, at this point in time, at this price, has a probability of 77% to be executed within the next hour. Who would be able to do that math just on the side here in this room? Introducing features like that allows more clients to actually take advantage of limit trades and achieve a better performance. Features like that create accessibility to advanced features of the financial markets. But also, we create accessibility to allow easy access to all sorts of assets on all platforms and languages. Once this trade has been executed, it is important to understand the performance. Performance on the asset level, on that particular trade, but also on the portfolio level, so on your entire holdings. At Scalable Capital, we built a sophisticated platform to deliver real-time, low-latency price and performance updates such that our clients are always in a position to make their decisions based on the latest data. The platform is built for scale, such that we can deliver those updates in quality and timeliness, and in the quality and the timeliness that is required. But scale also means we are able to attract a lot more clients, and we are able to serve them in that quality. By doing so, we achieve the economy of scale that we need to deliver that price point in the first place. Last but not least, we give back. We give back in terms of technology, but also to the community by providing sustainable means of investing. Now let me talk a bit more about performance. What do I mean by that also in terms of scale? I mentioned we have 6,000 stock, more than 3,000 derivatives, and we have 500,000 portfolios on our platform. And each of those portfolios can have one asset, 100 assets, maybe 1,000, we don't really know. But all of them expect real-time updates on prices and performance whenever something changes out there. And that requires scale. Let's do the math here. 500,000 portfolios, and we are actually growing a lot. And let's just make up a number, 10 positions per portfolio, but could as well be hundreds. And the number of updates we receive per second. Now that's the tricky one. We don't really know how many updates we will receive. Could be 1, could be 5 per second, could also be only 1 per minute. It really depends on the volatility of the market, the asset itself. But what we do know is when the market is volatile, we get a lot of those updates for a lot of stock and instruments. And it's also at those times when our clients rely the most on real-time prices and performance updates. Failing to deliver in these times might cause losses in our clients' portfolios. So let's put those numbers together. What does it actually mean? You very quickly end up with numbers like 300 million tasks to compute the performance per minute. 300 million is a big number. And it's clear now why this is a challenge and why we are a big challenge to deliver on our promise to deliver real-time price and performance updates. Well, here cloud comes to the aid. Let me show you how we were able to build a scalable architecture that can handle such a load. Using serverless technology like AWS Lambda and DynamoDB, we built a pipeline all the way from the market data receiver through processing, sampling, and storage in our system to the devices in our clients' hands. With this pipeline, we are able to generate price alerts, render charts that cover any period of time, and deliver performance updates whenever the prices change. And they change a lot, as we have learned. Cloud technology in general and serverless technology in particular allowed us to build a massively parallelized setup for processing the market data, computing the performance of hundreds of thousands of portfolios concurrently. Its capability to seamlessly scale up and down allows us to keep costs under control And that way, the cloud really is an enabler to scale the economics of our business. Compared to a hosted solution, we were able to reduce costs by 87%. But even more importantly, for me as an engineer, we were able to reduce the complexity in our system by 96%. And I mean messages, queues, networks, and so on and so forth. We are a financial services company, and we are authorized by the financial authorities. In Germany, that's the BaFin. That means we have to adhere to special regulations. AWS Cloud allowed us to build and operate an architecture that satisfies those requirements. Last but not least, we are a hyper-growth startup. While I'm talking here, probably thousands of people log in and execute trades on our platform, and that's awesome. With this setup, we have the capacity to continue on our path of hyper-growth and handle millions of portfolios. We want to empower everyone to become an investor. For this, we keep innovating to make investing more accessible and more affordable. If you want to join us on that journey, scan this QR code. Here are our openings. And since I'm here, approach me, talk to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andreas. It is so great to see how Scalable Capital is working with AWS to develop their modern data strategy. You know, the cloud has really fundamentally changed the way that we build apps. Things that used to be time-consuming, costly, or just impossible are today as easy for a developer to achieve as just a few API calls. And one of my favorite examples of this is AWS Private Link. Using AWS Private Link, you can establish private connectivity from your virtual private cloud or an on-premises network to AWS services. Your traffic is never exposed to the public internet. And so with just a few API calls, you can connect something like Amazon S3, which obviously provides you virtually unlimited storage and capacity at very low cost, all accessible solely using private IP addresses. This is actually just not possible with on-premises networks. AWS really provides you with just the broadest and deepest set of services, and we are constantly innovating on your behalf. And truly, you can use AWS for really any type of application, from a simple business automation all the way up to a hyperscaler consumer-facing application, low latency edge processing, and really everything in between. And AWS also delivers you just the best platform for a modern data strategy, so you can use data to transform your business and achieve more. Earlier, I talked about Amazon's invent and simplify leadership principle. Another principle we have is learn and be curious. Leaders are never done learning and are always seeking to improve themselves. I really encourage you to put this word into action, into practice today. Learn and be curious throughout the day. So much good content today. Really, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me this morning, and I hope you have a great day.